Welcome to a very special adventure into the wonderful world of mystic Christianity, the secret gospel of Jesus of Nazareth. Many people ask about the meaning of secret, and we must remember that Jesus said to his disciples when they came up and asked him why he spoke in parable, he said, "It is given to you to understand, but it is not given to them." So after the 3rd century, the early bishops decided that the secret teachings of Christianity would not be given to the masses. This is one of those lost series that comes from the archives of the Roman Vatican. But its most important contribution to mankind is to help him to understand how he can transform himself from human to divine. I'm your hostess, Elizabeth MacDonald Burrows. I want to welcome you to another episode in the Secret Gospel of Jesus of Nazareth. Last week we left off with the meaning of love and with Jesus' communion with the angel of love, which is one of the powers of the Heavenly Father. But before we go on, we have just entered into a new millennium. And I am reminded of Ecclesiastes, which chapter 3, to everything there is a season, a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away. Jesus came 2,000 years ago, 2 millenniums ago. He introduced what was known or would become known as the Great Piscean Age. I am not an astrologer. However, in seeing God's divine plan, we perceive in it that the stars that exist have an influence on us, that every cell in our body is influenced in some way, somewhere by the stars around us, and that we are comprised in reality of stardust. That is our physical characteristics. And our soul, of course, is comprised of timeless ethers, eternal and immortal. So, with this in mind, a new age always means not necessarily the beginning of something new, but a continuity, a continuation of that which has already begun. The only time that things were new, really new, was in the beginning of civilization. Since then, it has been a continual progress, epoch after epoch, climbing a stairway toward the stars. So 2,000 years ago, when Jesus brought forth the Piscean Age, Pisces represented the 2 fish. 2 fish are so significant of the 2 selves. One, which of course is our lower nature, which we have called by the name of Satan and the Antichrist, that which goes contrary to the ways of God. Now we have entered another age, a new age, or another one, called the Aquarian Age. This means that our sun has completed a 2,000-year cycle under the periodic influences of star clusters. It was the custom in ancient times to establish the seasons of the year by the movement of our planet through the star clusters. When people looked up and they saw a certain star cluster in a certain position, they knew that heralded a specific time of year. And if you out there have a problem with the term and usage and of star clusters, then remember that your calendars are based upon the movement of our sun through the star clusters and the movement of our earth around the sun, which also takes our earth through each one of the major star clusters once during each year. So not only have we entered a new millennium, but we have also completed a century, but we have also entered the influence of a new and another star cluster. So from the two selves which Jesus taught, in the sense of that the Christ was within us, that this would herald the dawn of another period, then here in Aquarius we analyze what the star cluster Aquarius means to us. The star cluster is under the influence of Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is looked upon as the school teacher of the zodiac. Uranus is looked upon as a planet of change. So if we were to bring these two things together, we would look at the Aquarian age as being a time of education, not just academic education, but of great education, spiritually and mentally, and in technology. And we would look at it as 1,000 years, yea, 2,000 years of change, meaning that our planet will go through monumental changes as we pass through these next two millenniums. So more important and overriding our current millennium is this fact that we have now moved into the Aquarian age, or under the influences of the star cluster Aquarius, meaning water, pour, or purification. Therefore, our planet will move now into 2,000 years of purification. This, to me, speaks a very strong message, that this is a continuation of the discovery of these two selves. In other words, only in the last 100 or 150 years has mass consciousness reached the plateau of education, meaning they can read and they can write, where mass consciousness can read and write, and thus develop a reasoning power that will enable them to explore the world that is yet to come. So for those who have waited impatiently and for the end to come, I'm certain they were surprised when 12 o'clock midnight came and still our world existed, as it will exist at the end of the next millennium and the next millennium after that. For only after this period can we actually hope for a planet of enlightenment. So as we enter into our next star cluster 2,000 years from now, I like to think that we will be entering at last into the age of enlightenment. This does not mean that many have not reached enlightenment or are going through an enlightening process, but the illumination, the transformation of human to divine, where no longer man will look at just being saved, but the resurrection of the dead, which is the great message of the Aquarian age. Raise the divine nature in us. Allow it to purify us. Come to oneness with God so that mankind as a whole becomes light. And then, and only then, can human progression end. So we cannot even expect the end of the world 2,000 years from now. But we can expect changes. We can expect to become greater in our reasoning power and much more knowledgeable in the spiritual message of life. So as he said in Ecclesiastes, and it seemed so right, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Our universe and our world, they're going according to plan. And we do not need to be alarmed that we can change the plan, because we cannot. Well, as I promised, we would begin with the communion with the angel of love, because we did not get completely through it last week. So as I go to the secret gospel of Jesus of Nazareth, we know that on the second evening after the Sabbath, meaning that Saturday, of course, is the Sabbath, and Saturday night would be the angel of power, and Sunday night would be the second night after the Sabbath day. So therefore it is with the angel of love. And our communion is, of course, to ponder and meditate upon the great love that God has for mankind and the magnificence of those people who have served God and served mankind. We have, in the last centuries, had many great people. And I think of the wonder of all the great people that are yet to come, as each person sometimes, someplace, portrays their own magnificent purpose of destiny. He said that the third communion is with the angel of love, whose healing waters flow in a never-ending stream from the sea of eternity. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of our Heavenly Father, and everyone that loves is born of the heavenly order and its angels. I know we covered this last week, but we're just reiterating in order to make a smooth continuity. Without love, a man's heart is parched and cracked as the bottom of a dry well, and his words are empty as a hollow gourd. But loving words are as a honeycomb, sweet to the soul. Loving word in a man's mouth are as deep waters, and a wellspring as a flowing brook. Yea, it was said in ancient days, thou shalt love your heavenly Father with all your heart and all your mind and with all your deeds, and you shall love your brothers as yourself. If you remember that this was written in Matthew, and that Jesus said upon this hangs the whole of the two laws, the whole of the laws, bound in these two simple statements. There had to have been a reason why he put God first and man second. And we've spent a lot of time practicing or trying to love man, but somehow or other we work at love today, and tomorrow it grows stale. And that is because we have not yet followed through the first commandment, which is to love God. Because it is that power of God in us, that Christ in us, that has the unity state, the love for all mankind, regardless of creed or caste or station. For this light of God, the Christ, His Son, is in everybody, even the hardened criminal who faces his execution. And one day, sometime, the Christ will come forth in them too. And we must not judge, but to try, to seek, to help. So, yea, it was said, thou shalt love your heavenly Father. And then, as you shall love your brothers as yourself. We have to ask ourselves if we love everyone as much as ourselves. Mostly we are wrapped up in ourselves, what we like, what we want to do. We want others to be in our image, what we think they should be, rather than learning to accept them as they are. But that's all right, because you see, we're only in the 4th grade in the eyes of God. We have yet high school and college ahead of us as a human race. So we are still very young. But we can begin to work today. It is not an excuse for us to not continue to strive. Otherwise, we will forever remain in the 4th grade. The Heavenly Father is love, and he that dwells in love dwells in the Heavenly Father, and the Heavenly Father in him. For he that loves not is a wandering bird and is cast out of the nest. For him the grass fails and the stream has a bitter taste. Do you know that when we do not love everything, the trees, the flowers, the green grass, the blue skies, the gray skies, the moving clouds, the rain, the snow, when we cannot find beauty in all of these things, as well as beauty in all humans, then we hate the weather, we're cold, or we hate the weather because we're hot, or we don't think in terms of the trees or the flowers only once in a while. Once in a while we'll take a bouquet to someone we care about. But nature passes us by and we do not perceive its beauty. But as we pursue the pathway of loving all things, then all things become more beautiful. By this we know the children of light, those who walk with the angel of love, for they love the Heavenly Father, they love their brothers, and they keep the holy law. And we say, what law do we keep if we keep the holy law? Meaning we surrender to the will and direction of our Heavenly Father. Love is stronger than the current of deep waters, and love is stronger than death. And every night should the sons of light bathe in the holy water of the angel of love, that with morning he may baptize the sons of men with 2 simple things. This is all we have to remember if we become confused. Kind deeds and gentle words. Kind deeds and gentle words to everyone. That's all we have to remember about taking that first step to learning and developing love. Remember what I told you last week, that love takes a great deal of work, a great deal of practice. It takes a constant effort until one day it becomes an intricate part of ourselves. And when it is, we no longer have to think anymore. We function always in love. So every night should the sons of light bathe in the holy water of the angel of love, that with the morning he may baptize the sons of men with kind words and kind deeds. For when the hearts of the sons of light are bathed in love, only kind and gentle words speak forth. So the contemplative point here is love for all life, from the struggling planet to the stars in heaven. I think back long ago when I turned my love to God, who guided me to learn to love my fellow man. And when I gave up one, he gave me a city. And when I gave up a city, he gave me a nation. And when I gave up a nation, he gave me a universe. And when I talk about giving up, I'm talking about removing the barriers that stand between ourselves and religious caste systems or color caste, anything that separates us from another person. And when we have done this upon the earth, then we shall do it. And the universe of the stars. For oh yes, there must be life out there. Life, third dimension like we in this 150 billion galaxy. Life that is so advanced we could not see them. Life that is not yet evolved into human. Oh yes, we start with our family, and then we spread our love to our culture, and one day we will spread it to the universe. And when we have done that, we will do as Pierre Chardin, de Chardin once said, when we have harnessed love, we will have harnessed fire for the second time. The first time as we came upon the molten planet of Earth and volcanic eruptions and not just volcanic eruptions but earthquakes and tidal waves and steam and heat and storms. We survived. We built a planet, great cities, great skyscrapers, great monuments to honor those who have helped us to build this empire. Now when we have harnessed love, as de Chardin said, we shall have harnessed fire for the second time. So love for all life, from the struggling plant to the stars in the sky. So you close your eyes and you think of creation and feel the presence of your Heavenly Father around you, for He loves you and He has never left you. And a part of Him has always been with you and always will be, regardless of what you do. You may in consciousness be cut off, but in reality, never. And we can forever be the prodigal son, which returns to his Heavenly Father. So we are aware of the love that God gives to us, and in turn we want to share the load which God bears. So we too, like Jesus did so long ago, we pick up our cross and go forth with kind words and kind deeds to mankind, to help them in their sorrow, to give them strength when they are weak, to let them know that there is hope, and let them know that they have a moment of greatness, to guide them to greater destinies. Oh yes, we can be of help to God in so many ways. So we contemplate on serving God and how wonderful it is to reach and to help our fellow man. I always used to perceive myself many years ago on a mountain. I never got to the top. I just always was somewhere on the mountain helping people up the mountain, and as they reached it, then Jesus would take their crosses off, and after that they turned into angels. And it helped me to know how wonderful it is to help another person. And I think there isn't a person that I'm talking to today that hasn't felt that wonderment in helping another. So we contemplate upon this, on love. And we think of how all of nature loves. The tree gives shelter to everyone. The water gives a drink to anyone and everyone, animal or human. The grass grows for everyone. The sun shines on everyone, rich or poor, fat or thin. And we too then must become one with the movement of cosmic order, like the rivers and the streams and the trees and the beauty of the flowers. Then one day we turn around and we love. So practice this every single Sunday night. We think of love. Go forth to work on Monday morning, a better person and a stronger person. I'm going to lay this aside, and before we go on with Peace with Culture, I have found some writing by Swinburne Swinburne Clymer. He was a Christian mystic and also had passed through the resurrection of the dead, or the transformation of human to divine, called a Christian master. And someday it is my hope that we will have Christian masters as great as the masters of the East. And I'm sure we have had in the past, many of them. But where we actually stop going into the formalized style of church and go to sit at the feet of a great master. This day is coming for our nation. A foolish man seeks peace and happiness in the things of earth, those things which intoxicate the mind for a season, bringing in their wake misery and regret. Sounds very much, doesn't it, like that part of the secret gospel that we were reading where Jesus speaks that you cannot serve two masters. Men drain the wine cup for present pleasure, rebelling at the lethargy and suffering that follows. There is a wine that has no dregs, no ill effect, the wine of love. Those who drink of it partake of the pleasure and the satisfaction that comes from all good. To drink of this cup opens the way to the fountain of life, gives length of days, strength of body and soul, illumination. And you may not understand the soul illumination, but there is a difference between enlightenment and illumination. I believe we have explained this in other programs that we have had, but enlightenment is that process of learning each day another step. In other words, as we proceed up the path or up the ladder, we have a series of enlightening experiences. For instance, if you bake a cake today, perhaps tomorrow you will bake a cake that will go to the fair and win a prize, because you will keep baking them, and each time you bake a cake you become a little bit more enlightened on how to make a better cake. So we call it a process of enlightenment. Illumination, of course, is that resurrection where suddenly there is this tremendous burst and the consciousness opens up to become one with the consciousness of God, and bring then back. Not only does the Spirit of God then dwell with man after this, but at the same time we come back with an understanding of the entire plan of God for the creation of the universe. And so that's what it talks about. To drink this cup opens the way to the fountain of life, gives length of days, strength of body and soul, illumination. The cup of wine of the grape gives joy for the hour that now is, but it robs the day of its sun and the night of its peace. It gives weakness to the body, dullness of mind, invites sin into the life, quenches the fire of the soul. Love keeps the fire of the souls burning. It is like an incense scattered over the flames of an altar. It calls to the thought of God. The man who drinks of the wine of love utterly is clothed with robes of glory and ministers in the temple of God. The cup of love is to the soul what sunshine is to the rose. It bestows a halo of beauty around the perfection of growth. Without the sun, the rose has neither perfume nor beauty. Without love, the soul cannot expand and grow luminous. If you remember also last week I mentioned that while our mind is the tool that drives us to the doorway of God, it is love that opens that doorway. And I cannot describe enough that when you love God more than anything else, you will see Him face to face. Your time will come. And until then, we practice the arts that will one day build this kind of love. We study the laws of nature and come to respect the beauties of the flowers and the trees. We study the nature of God to understand power and love and wisdom. We peruse the books to find the answers of life. And one day, behold, a great love will enter our heart, a love for God. So, through love, the soul becomes a center of loveliness, giving forth the fragrance tempered together, pure and holy. Love is the life and light of man. Love is the life of the flame that burns in the altar of the heart. Love thinks only of the good, the true, the beautiful, and therefore accomplishes so very much. Love discovers ways of helpfulness. It forgets itself. This is transmutation. It accomplishes great things, and its reward is peace and honor, glory and illumination. I think those are such beautiful words, because with love we accomplish so much. If we are in love with an individual, we will do so much for them because we love them. Think how much more we will do for God if we love Him. And then in turn we know, because He loves His people, that we too must love humanity. The rose tree, true to the law of its being, produces the rose of beauty and rare perfume. Love, true to the law of being, produces good works, saintly characters, and a rare loveliness. Love is absorbed in giving to the object of its love. Love causes its labor to manifest the good that increases, which manifests a further good. Cultivation of the rose tree brings forth many blossoms. Cultivation of love brings forth the fruit of the Spirit, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance, all the things that we loved so much in the great Master Jesus. Walk in the love of the Spirit. Love and serve all creatures. Love God. Fair and long are the days of those whose hearts are ruled by love. Short and sorrowful are the days of those whose hearts are ruled by hate. Fair and calm the days of those whose hearts are filled with love. But short and bitter the days of those whose hearts are filled with malice. Full of remorse the days of those whose hearts are poisoned by pangs of jealousy, but long and sweet, bright and fair are those whose hearts are ruled by forgiveness. Fair and bright, calm and sweet are the days of man, when the heart and mind are filled with love and faith, with peace and forgiveness. Bitter the cup that is filled with the poison of hate and envy and jealousy and fear. Bitter the life of the man who quaffs at the cup so filled. Sweet is the life of the man who drinks at the fountain of love. Long are his days, divine is his life, glorious the end thereof. Before I finish these last 3 verses of this poem that he wrote here, I want to mention to you that if we could remove the negativity from our minds and from our consciousnesses, and we can transmute much of this, all of this, by working on love, many of the diseases that we have in the world today would begin to disappear. Because where a high vibrational frequency exists, the disease which is a lower vibrational frequency, there cannot be a holy marriage or a union. And so with higher vibrational bodies, as we will have in the next, as the next 2,000 years proceed, the diseases of today will gradually pass away, hopefully, will not create new ones. Bitter is the cup that is filled with the sorrow that comes from a life perverted. The days seem long, the nights endless, the heart is pressed down and heavy. Bright is the light, glorious the life of him whose heart is pure, for he is the light, his the robe of the kingdom that knows no ending. We find references here to the crown of light. We find references to the purple robe of transformation. These are Christian symbols that represent the illumined state. The crown, of course, of light is that crown which is first a crown of thorns and ultimately becomes a crown of light that descends when the Spirit comes to live in the flesh. And of course, the great robe is looked upon as that Spirit which now abides with the soul in the world of matter. For his is the light, his the robe of the kingdom that knows no ending. Meager is the life, short the day of him who looks to earth for blessings. Bright is the day, peaceful the night, of him who looks to the Father for all things. So a little excerpt of Swinburne Clymer. It comes from the Sacred College of the Ancient Mysteries. He was a wonderful, a very fine Christian initiate who lived in the 1800s and died, I think, in the early 1900s, somewhere in there, if I'm not mistaken. Back to the secret gospel. We're going on now with the sevenfold path of peace, which ties in so much with the world of the family and the world of love, because Jesus speaks on peace with humanity. This is not easy, peace with humanity. A constant struggle it is to be friends to those who are crabby and irritable, to try to stop long enough to understand they're feeling that way because something is wrong in their lives. And usually we just get crabby and irritable back without thinking that we only increase this throughout the world, because our own irritation, as we've talked about before in the great mind and the cosmic sea, all of our negative thoughts are added to the negative thoughts, creating these great massive currents that make it so difficult to be happy. So we must seek peace with humanity. And if we cannot love, let us seek to understand humanity and to accept humanity for what it is. Those steps first are lead us to the world of compassion and love, to be understanding, to accept all man as he is, and then to be peaceful and bring kind words and deeds to our fellow man. Then shall the Son of Man seek peace with other sons of men, even with the Pharisees and the priests, even with beggars and the homeless, and even with kings and governors. So he tells us here there must not be any barriers between us. There must be no barriers between religions. There must be no barriers between philosophy and science and religion. There must be no barriers between rich and poor. We must be like the Son and remove all barriers and accept all mankind as our brothers and our sisters. For all are the sons of men, whatever be their station, whatever be their calling, whether their eyes have been opened to see the heavenly kingdoms, or yet whether they yet walk in darkness and in ignorance. For the justice of men may reward the undeserving and punish the innocent. But the holy law is the same for all, whether beggar or king, or whether shepherd or priest. We will never know or fully understand why someone commits a heinous crime, or commits murder or robbery or rape, because we don't walk in their moccasins. We think of ourselves righteous and pure because we do not do these things. But it is because time, learning, and understanding have put us at last beyond these things. Therefore, we cannot help by condemnation. This does not mean that we have to pat them on the back and say, fine, it is nice that you have committed a heinous act. But it is rather that we reach out a hand to see how we can change the world tomorrow. Can we send books inside the prisons? They're allowed to have spiritual books. I had a little course once called, it wasn't a meditation course, it was a little correspondence course, and I used to call it Eye of the Needle, and of course I was devastated when the spy book came out and they had named it Eye of the Needle, and I could not use that title anymore because I hadn't copyrighted it. But this ended up in about 7 countries and also in 4 prisons. And I think about this one prisoner who contacted me, and so I sent him some books, some spiritual books, and as the story goes, it turned out that at the time that he received the books, he had just been placed in solitary confinement because they had found drugs on him in the prison. And he received all these books in solitary confinement. They are only allowed, of course, they're only allowed the religious books. So therefore, at the end of the 30 days of his solitary confinement, he apparently had gone through a complete transformational change. He went forth to start writing for the prison newspaper and became a very excellent artist, and felt that he did more, and probably he did, more within the walls of the prison than he could have done outside, because he could write his article in the prison newspapers. So you see, if we will reach out that helping hand, we do not know how far it will reach, or how many lives it will touch, or where it goes, like that simple correspondence course that ended up in so many nations and in 4 prisons. So, we as a human being are unable to evaluate the correctness of the law. We are fallible. Only that of divine will and divine force can evaluate. So for that reason, we have the law of cause and effect. For every good we do, doth good come back. For every bad we do, doth bad come back. But not as a punishment, to teach us the lessons so that we will not suffer in the future. Therefore, we punish the innocent. But the holy law is the same for all, whether beggar or king, or shepherd or priest. Seek peace with all the sons of men, and let it be known of the brotherhood of light that we have lived according to the holy law since the time of Enoch and before. For we are not rich, neither are we poor, but we share all things, even our garments and the tools that we use to till the soil. And together we work in the fields with all the angels, bringing forth the gifts of the earthly mother for all to eat. And that is why it was that the brotherhood could journey from one place to another. There would always be those that would take care of them, clothe them, feed them, dress them. It was never necessary to carry money, and they could travel to any part of the country and find those that would take care of them. So it wasn't necessary to be rich, and it wasn't necessary to be poor. For the strongest of the angels of the Heavenly Father, the angel of work, blesses each man who works in the way best for him. For then shall he know neither want nor excess. And these will be the next parts of Jesus' teachings that we will be taking up, and that is, of course, the angel of power, which is expressed through our own special creative work. Truly is there abundance for all men in the kingdom of the earthly mother and the heavenly Father, when each man works at his task. For when a man shirks his task, then another must take it up. For we are given all things in the kingdom of heaven and the earth for the price of labor. And that was an important line for us to remember. It said, for we are given all things in the kingdoms of heaven and earth at the price of labor. And that is because we cannot expect to have illumination and oneness with God by osmosis. We must work toward it and work for it. To serve God, to serve mankind, is to serve Jesus. I think the greatest gift that we have to give the Master is to take him down from the cross. That was my prayer so many years ago that led me on the path of temptation. I said, oh, please, God, send Jesus back to earth. And if you are not going to do so, I said, please send Jesus back to earth now. We need him now. Let him not have died in vain. And if you are not going to send him now, please let me help carry his cross. And so it was shortly after that that Jesus appeared to me. And if we would take Jesus from the cross. We would try to become as Jesus was. And we would try to live by the teachings that he left, getting better and better at them each day. And then someday we truly would walk with him in paradise. Not just sit at his feet listening to discourses, but we would have the honor and privilege of serving as co-creators of this planet, to work as Jesus works for the good of all mankind. Oh, how wonderful it would be to be on the great ball team and to work with the Master for the common good of all people. Always have the brothers of light lived where the angels of the earthly mother rejoice, near rivers, near trees, near flowers, near music of the birds, where the sun and rain may embrace the body, which is the temple of the Spirit. So we try to live where there are trees and rivers and streams and things and music, so we can hear the music of the birds. Nor do we ought to do with the edicts of rulers. Neither do we uphold them, as our law is the law of the Heavenly Father and earthly Mother. Neither do we oppose them, for no one rules save the will of God. So he has said we do not oppose those who are in rulership, and neither do we put them there, because we follow the will of God. And so many of the early Christians were martyred because they followed the will of God, or followed the teachings of Christ. When they were, people tried to coerce them into believing in multi-gods, they sacrificed their lives for this ideal. So we too now follow the way of God and not the way of man. I have found, though, that in following the will of God, that he keeps me in harmony with the laws of man. And therefore, I stay out of much trouble. Rather, we strive to live according to the holy law and strengthen always that which is good in all things. Then will the kingdom of darkness be changed to the kingdom of light. For where there is light, how can darkness remain? If you remember our very first episode, our early episodes, when we took a look at the creation of the world, and it was laid out like a massive chessboard, and that our soul was also a reflection of this chessboard, that we are born in darkness and ignorance, but we also bear light which can overcome all that darkness. And it was from this that the duality, or shall I say the legends of the duality of Satan and Christ, or hell and heaven, began to come from. But in reality, we are both heaven and hell. We are both the Christ and the Antichrist, always constantly overcoming the darkness and ignorance that is in us. So it says, and where there is light, how can darkness remain? So if we continue to work toward the path of light and do not give in to the path of darkness and unknowingness, then one day light shall surround us and we shall live in a world of light. When all mankind lives in a world of light, then human existence will be no longer necessary. And listen to this next line, because I've heard so many people in my life talk about going to heaven. Just, oh, when I die, I'm going to live with Jesus. I'm going to heaven. Yes, we enter a state that is more heavenly because we are free of the embodiment. But this is not what it says in Revelation. The New Jerusalem will descend to earth. And this is not what Jesus teaches us. He said, blessed is he who builds on earth the kingdom of heaven, for then he shall dwell in both worlds, in heaven and earth. You shall follow the law of the brotherhood, which says, none shall have wealth and none shall be poor, and all shall work together in the garden of the brotherhood. Yet each person shall follow his own path. Each shall commune with his own heart. For in the infinite garden there are many and diverse flowers. Who shall say that one is best because its color is purple, or one is favored because its stalk are long and slender? Though the brothers be of different complexion, yet do they toil in the vineyards of the earthly mother, and they all lift their voices together in the praise of the heavenly Father. And together they break the holy bread, and in silence share the holy meal of thanksgiving. There shall be no peace among peoples till there be one garden of the brotherhood over earth. For how can there be peace when each man pursues his own gain and sells his soul into slavery? Gather, therefore, unto your brothers, and then go forth and teach the ways of the law to those who would hear. He who has found peace with the brotherhood of man has made himself co-worker with God. And after this manner, therefore pray to your heavenly Father when the sun is high at midday. Our Father, which art in heaven, send to all the sons of men your angel of peace, and send to all humankind the angel of work, that having a holy task, we should not ask for any other blessing. And I want that you should join us next week as we enter into the holy kingdom and communion with the angel of power at the beginning of creation, and to go on with the sevenfold path of peace with culture.